He asked me to pay off an adult film star with whom he had an affair and to lie about it to his wife, which I did. And lying to the First Lady is one of my biggest regrets. Donald Trump is a man who ran for office to make his brand great, not to make our country great. I fear that if he loses the election in 2020, that there will never be a peaceful transition of power.
So much to unpack tonight after a long and explosive day on Capitol Hill.
President Trump's former personal attorney, Michael Cohen, blasting his former boss, accusing him of committing crimes while in the White House.
So the burning questions moving forward, was Cohen telling the truth today? And if so, what does it mean for the president?
CBS 4's Francis Wang is here with a look. Francis.
Well, Ruta and Elliott, in his testimony today, Michael Cohen gave lawmakers a roadmap of where to go next, even specific people who would have knowledge of alleged criminal conduct. Cohen also brought documents he says supports his claims and suggested where to get more. And most importantly, he has alleged that the president underestimated his net worth so as to not pay his fair share of taxes, giving Democrats a basis to pursue the president's tax returns.
I am ashamed that I chose to take part in concealing Mr. Trump's illicit acts rather than listening to my own conscience. I am ashamed because I know what Mr. Trump is. He is a racist, he is a con man, and he is a cheat.
In a 6-hour testimony in front of the House Oversight Committee, the president's former personal lawyer, Michael Cohen, told all.
He asked me to pay off an adult film star with whom he had an affair.
Cohen brought this statement from the personal home equity loan he took out to hide that $130,000 hush payment to Stormy Daniels. He says the president reimbursed him in installments so it would look like a retainer, signing this $35,000 check in mid-2017. Cohen also claimed that the president knew ahead of time about the WikiLeaks release of Hillary Clinton's emails.
Mr. Stone told Mr. Trump that he had just gotten off the phone with Julian Assange, and that Mr. Assange told Mr. Stone that within a couple of days there would be a massive dump of emails that would damage Hillary Clinton's campaign. Mr. Trump responded by stating to the effect, "Wouldn't that be great?"
Both Roger Stone and WikiLeaks denied Cohen's claims. He also revealed that the president is being looked into in another criminal matter.
Is there any other wrongdoing or illegal act that you are aware of regarding Donald Trump that we haven't yet discussed today?
Yes, and again, those are part of the investigation that's currently being looked at by the Southern District of New York.
Cohen faced heavy scrutiny from Republicans who questioned his credibility.
Mr. Cohen, you called Donald Trump a cheat in your opening testimony. What would you call yourself?
A fool.
Liar, liar, pants on fire.
Democrats, including Chairman Elijah Cummings, took him for his word.
Do you believe that the president committed a crime while in office?
Based on what, looking at the checks and listening to Mr. Cohen, it appears that he did.
And Cohen is back tomorrow to testify before the House Intelligence Committee, this time in a closed session. And in just a couple of months, Cohen will start his 3-year federal sentence. In the studio, I'm Francis Wang, CBS 4 News Tonight.